my friends! So today I'm going to be reviewing A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I was really looking forward to reading this book because I made a video about it, which I'll link on the page, but that was more so just me being excited and talking about what I plan to do. I'm maybe about halfway through the planning process, and I still want to design some things to go along with it. But let me say what the it is, I guess. I want to make a Magical Academy themed read-along. And so you can get ideas for what book to read next based off of what track you want to be on in school. So I picked up a lot of books that had to do with magical learning, and of course magical academies or schools or universities were preferential. And so I was so excited to see A Deadly Education because one, I already figured it had something to do with learning. When I read the synopsis, I found out it's right. Elle goes to a magical school, and an interesting twist, it's actually the school itself that is magical / teaching them, but not in the way I was hoping when I initially heard that, but it teaches them through monsters. There are monsters running around and they have to learn and they have to stay on their toes and they have to be alert, otherwise they won't make it through their education. So that's both a little summary of what's in the book as well as the reason why I was excited to pick it up. Alright, so for the points of view, it's actually super easy. We only have one narrative voice throughout the whole thing. It is Elle herself. It's always in past tense, and it usually comes across as first person, but every now and then you can kind of break that fourth wall of like, well, let me tell you, and you wouldn't believe it. So other than that kind of gray area of me knowing what to call it, it seems very easy to follow and should be good for all audiences. So as far as like the social or adult kind of aspect to this, I would just say the big lesson or like takeaway from this is don't judge a book by its cover. Elle is really good at really destructive spells. Like the worst magic that you can conceive comes the easiest to her. But her mom was both a hippie in that she chose to live in a commune and raised Elle in a commune, but also she kind of has that hippie, or I referred to it as heroic mentality of like, we have to do this for the greater good or because this is what's right. And so even though Elle's like, I'm not fully that way, hearing that like every day of your upbringing kind of sticks with you a little bit. And so even though doing these destructive things could be detrimental to her, so that's a reason not to do it, it also kind of seems like part of the reason why she doesn't do it is it's wrong, it would hurt people, and she still strikes me as, like, at her core, a good person, even if she can be a little terse. People have always given her the cold shoulder because they can kind of catch that vibe from her. She kind of emanates that feeling of, like, bad news. One of her friends describes it to her as, you know that feeling right before it's about to rain and you know, like, you're about to be caught in, like, a storm without, like, your umbrella or, like, rain boots or anything? That's what it feels like being around you. But since we follow her and we get a narration from her point of view, we can see that she's really not that bad, that she has a lot of reasons to do what she does, even when it seems like it might not be the most friendly option. Two, I just want to mention in this, in case you've heard about any controversy around this book, there were kind of two things I was a little surprised to find later on, but yeah, I guess I just wanted to address it to let you know. I have heard about it. I don't feel like it's really my place to speak on it. And I also don't really want to talk about it because it kind of soured my enjoyment of this book. And I wouldn't want to put that on anybody else, but I also want to let you know that it's out there in case you're worried about something like that and want to read up on it before reading this book. So as we know, my very favorite part of every single book, I have some opinions about how it was done in this book, but again, I'm going to try and save those for the opinionated part, but just suffice to say that since this whole book is about fighting very hard to stay alive almost every second, there's no time for romance. Definitely nothing intimate happens within this book. So we see violence in the very first line of the book where our main character Elle vows to kill a fellow classmate. While it is mostly set out of frustration for how troublesome he is, there are still moments of violence throughout the whole book. Of course there would be. It's called A Deadly Education. There are a lot of attacks by these monsters that they call Mal, short for I think like Maleficarium. Usually it's only the monsters that come to harm. I do remember there was one monster attack that was particularly gross. Elle kind of ends up inside of one, and even though it's not human, it's still got to have some kind of organs to survive, so it's kind of gross to hear about her being stuck inside this thing. There's also one attack in between students that gets a little bloody. Woo, it's time for my favorite part. So I have to say, I like this book a whole lot, but I don't think that it will fall into my favorite books category. Probably just the main reason of I found Elle kind of annoying. I was watching a booktube video and I heard somebody say something about a big criticism this book gets is that the main character is not likable, but she's not really meant to be. And maybe they weren't even talking about this book and I'm conflating it, but I went into this book having that idea that she wasn't likable. And the more I read it, I was like, well, sure, it starts with her going, I want to kill this guy. And I don't like that in my main character. I don't like to see myself in somebody else's shoes as somebody whose immediate thought is, this person annoyed me, they must die. But she seems very logical throughout the whole book. She has logic behind her. I'm so mad at him, I might just kill him. It is an over-exaggeration, but that's it. She doesn't really intend to do it. The part that annoyed me about Elle is just her moodiness. And I kind of get it. They're teenagers, too. This book is written for teenagers when you're like, I'm going through the worst things in my life. So if somebody else who's like, everything sucks in my life, you're like, yeah, you get it. But she's constantly like, I hate all these people. And also like, why doesn't anybody like me? And I totally get like feeling lonely. There's a reason that's even described that I think I already mentioned, where just so many people's first impression of her is, ooh, I don't like her. And finally she gets like one friend to kind of explain it to her because of the kind of magic that she's drawn to and that she could cast well and cast easily. She kind of has this like evil aura around her, even though she hasn't done anything evil. At least I don't think so. It doesn't seem like it in the book. And but she has this aura her friend describes as when you're out on a walk and you feel like it's about to rain, or maybe it does start raining and you realize that you did not pack an umbrella or rain shoes or anything like that. So you're stuck in the rain and you're gonna be that way for a while. And she's like, that's how it feels being around you. And I mean, I get it. If that's the feeling you got around somebody, why would you want to stop to get to know them? You would probably just be like, and go somewhere else. So that sucks that she's so lonely. Like, so many people think that she's a bad gal when she's not really that bad of a gal. But they're also dealing with like imminent monster attacks every single moment. So it's kind of like, stop having so many feelings. You have to worry about fighting. Come on. You're here to fight. You're here to learn. You're not here to lament your teenager feelings. It totally makes sense in the character. I don't think it was bad writing. I don't think it was bad to put it in. I just didn't like the amount of it that was in there. So that, I think, soured it a little bit for me. Oh, that was the other thing. I know I kind of led with that she's very logical, but it just seemed a little incongruent. How firmly logical she is, yet how often she talks about being lonely and hating everybody. You can be logical and emotional, I guess, but usually you have a larger amount of one than the other. They're not often even. I would have liked to focus on how logical she is and less about her feelings. Makes me sound like a jerk, I guess. Anyway, but the big selling point of this book and the thing that I liked a lot, even though I don't think I'll be able to use it in my research, is the magical school. I think it's so interesting how she turns the magical school kind of thing on its head, where the literal school is the thing that's like magical. In this book, it's like a mechanical creation. So as the school slowly winds down, it gets more dangerous and it gets harder to survive. And that's the graduation at the end of everything, is there's this giant room of monsters and you have to make it through. And it's absolutely possible that you would have worked so hard in all your classes and all your learning and made it through all of the school to get to graduation day and then get eaten by some beastie. I think it's a very interesting premise, and I'm so glad that I got to read a story that's kind of that imaginative and was able to come up with something interesting like that. The only bummer is I don't think I'll be able to use it for my Magical Academy. I'm kind of leaning more towards like a university type of thing, and I don't think anybody would willingly sign up for a class where monsters try to eat you the whole class. Definitely not the whole school year. In this universe, they kind of have to survive. It is much more preferable to go to the school and get the opportunity to learn and only have monsters attack you sometimes and with a lot of other students than to try to survive on your own. But I think my favorite part about this book was the logic. I think Elle is very logical. She makes a lot of good logical decisions and plans and stuff like that. And I like too that she comes across as like a bad girl, but she's not. She's nice. I think I'd be your friend. One more thing I almost forgot to say is my opinion about the romance in this book. As you know, if you've watched any of my other videos, I am kind of a grump about romance, and this book was really good for me because while romance takes a big part, it's not gushy, if that makes any sense. It's hard for me to say very much on it without giving spoilers, but Elle pretends to date somebody so that she can kind of make friends, so that she kind of has protection. And it's just really funny to see her kind of, instead of being like, oh, he's so handsome, oh my gosh, I really like this person, like, to just be like, oh, well, this is what somebody who's dating would do, and if I'm trying to keep that up, I'm gonna do that. And it was just really funny. I actually really appreciated the romance in this. Again, it was done similarly to the creative way that the magical school angle was kind of twisted. The romance for the main character was also a little strange. She decides tactically this is the best option. And I love that so much. I love that side of her. That's my favorite side of Elle, is this makes the most amount of sense. Alright, so my closing remarks is that this book has a super interesting premise that I think is done really well, and I enjoyed most of the book. I would, however, put a warning out for violence, since it is called A Deadly Education. They fight mostly monsters, but there is one attack between two humans. But I would recommend it. I would recommend it even more if you like magical schools, magical universities, stuff like that. This is a very cool interpretation of that. Alright, so that was my review on A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I just want to thank you so much for watching the video. It really means a lot. Seeing the views and even the likes really makes my day. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate it. I appreciate you. And I hope you're enjoying your day and that I get to see you again soon. Bye for now.